Well, we asked the panel if they would vote if there's a general election tomorrow. So who would they vote for? Well, Labour got most. They increased their lead, actually, from last time, from 32 to 34%.
Yeah. Also, we asked if people would vote to rejoin the European Union. 41% of our panel were in favour of rejoining, 32% against, 20% still not really knowing.
Also, would they support Liz Truss in loosening immigration rules? 32% support the Prime Minister, 27% don't.
Well, joining us now is former Labour advisor and associate editor of Labour Uncut, Kevin Marr. Hello, very good morning to you, Kevin. What do you make of that? My goodness.
Well, I mean, in terms of the parties, I mean, what we're seeing here is, you know, the kind of figures that we saw in the mid-1990s with the new Labour surge, when John Major's government was on the rack from kind of 1992 onwards, again, following a Black Wednesday and the serious financial crash of September 1992. So you know, this is a pretty significant moment, because does it reflect what Jim Callaghan used to describe as a sea change in British politics? I think for the last few years, Labour's been doing OK after its collapse in 2019, when it got the lowest number of MPs since 1935. But there's not a sense that actually a lot was changing. Boris was still pretty popular before all the kind of lockdown party scandals and all the rest of it. But what's happened in the last few months clearly is a tilt. These Labour leads now have become absolutely huge. And what it augurs, if you like, is not only a collapse of the Tory red wall, so all these seats that the Conservatives under Boris won from Labour in the Midlands and the north of England in 2019, all of those would start to go back into the Labour camp. But the blue wall, all the sort of Conservative heartlands in the south, a lot of those would go as well on these kinds of numbers. It really represents a kind of Tory meltdown, and really what it does at the moment is put Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, as we were hearing about a little bit earlier, it puts them on political death row, because these are the kinds of figures that Conservative MPs and activists will see and say, look, you know, we're facing wipeout here, so we can't have this. Something has got to change. And you know, polls are of course only snapshots at any particular time, but they kind of electrify politics in the moment. And given all the difficulties that the government faces right now, you know, this poll will just heap even more pressure on number 10 and number 11, and kind of you know, probably push the Prime Minister and the Chancellor into making some pretty big U-turns and political changes. Probably,
or Kevin, sticking to their decisions. Either which way. I mean, doesn't this indicate, because this isn't about Labour Party getting approval, is it necessarily? It's about the fact that so many people seem to be saying, I don't know what the government is doing, and you don't vote for uncertainty.
It's very true. I mean, there's the old adage goes that oppositions don't win elections, governments lose them. And I think there's a palpable sense that the government is slipping and sliding. And you know, the extraordinary briefings that we're hearing from Westminster in terms of Conservative MPs already plotting against Liz Truss, and some of them demanding Kwasi Kwarteng's head. I mean, this is extraordinary, given they've been in office for just a matter of a few weeks. So you know, it's a very, very febrile moment, and you know, the polls reflect that, and the polls, you know, show that the public is scared, concerned. We've got predictions of a recession all through 2023. That's going to determine what happens at the next general election, which doesn't need to take place until, of course, quite late on in 2024. But you know, we're in a moment of real, genuine political flux. And as I say, it's that question of, is a sea change taking place? Is this Labour lead real, or is it just a reaction to short-term turbulence, as Kwasi Kwarteng would call it? I think Labour strategists will take a deep breath and look at these figures and say that they're far too good to be true, and actually, of course, they'll be pared down by the time of the next election. But I think Labour people are saying, we can now dare to dream. We thought after the 2019 election, where you know, Labour was wiped out in the north of England, didn't make any progress back in Scotland, and really struggling, that actually Labour feels like it's back in the game, and that the next general election is competitive. And these figures, you know, will narrow an awful lot before the next election, I've no doubt. But Labour people have got the spring in their step, because they feel actually, for the first time in quite a long time, that the prospect of winning the next election is now actually very real.